When I ask what's your sign, I mean what constellation was the sun in at the moment of your birth. The sun sign is important because it shows our basic character traits. Over the next few months, we'll cover the whole zodiac, but for now, let's talk about the sun in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is the final and most peculiar sign of the zodiac. Its symbol is two fish connected by a cord swimming in opposite directions. The fish look exactly alike, so you might be reminded of Gemini, the twins, but the twins are always looking at each other and touching, very aware of each other's presence, whereas each fish seems to have no awareness of the other, and there's no hint of the two negotiating the direction in which they're going to swim. The complete lack of interaction between the fish lies at the heart of Pisces. But first, let's talk about its ruler, Neptune. He is god of the sea and lives in a sprawling kingdom somewhere under there. He's a volatile god. Sometimes his seas are bright and blue and calm. Sometimes they turn gray and churn and begin to storm. He was responsible for earthquakes and tsunamis too, as well as the monsters of the sea, some of which were his own children. Neptune and his watery realm tell a lot about Pisces. Like the tides, their feelings and emotions never stop moving, and their compassion seems bottomless. This is the sign of the zodiac most comfortable with the non-rational world of feelings. They are human, however, so there's a rational mind. That's why the symbol shows two fish. One stands for the rational and one the non-rational. One fish is light and the other dark. One is conscious and one the unconscious. Pisces seems to embody the dual nature of being human and is therefore full of contradiction. This makes Pisces confusing to people who lean toward the rational mind and who live in a more concrete world, because they don't understand a couple of things. For instance, how Pisces can answer yes and no to a direct question that requires a yes or no. When they're asked how they arrived at a conclusion, they may genuinely not be able to say. After all, spoken language is useless underwater, and they live in a highly intuitive world where logical steps don't matter. Intuition is, in fact, Pisces' #1 navigation tool. Another thing to know about the fish is that they learn about the world through other people. That's why they float from person to person and seem to swim into unplanned and unconceived of experiences. They're standing on the sidewalk, and the next thing they know, they're at the table of a Greek family drinking ouzo. And if you ask how that happened, they're likely not to be able to explain it. Not exactly. There's something dreamy about Pisces, kind of flaky, maybe a little spacey. And what you see isn't what you get with them. If the fish in your life is staring out the window at the rain, she might actually be engineering the biggest Death Star anyone's ever seen. Maybe a Pisces flits around in flowered skirts and sandals and gypsy jewelry and falls into hookups because she's such a free spirit. Or maybe she's pathologically unable to have a close and committed relationship. Or maybe the hookups are real and the jewelry isn't. You have to look closely at this sign to figure out what's going on. And just when you think you've got a hold of them, they shimmy and dart away. Pisces can dart away or float away and drift off because they're so changeable they can always get back on course again. That's why they can live in such an open state. The chaos of existence doesn't seem to bother them either. Here's when we begin to find ourselves tangled up in that cord, however, because this fluidity comes from only one of the fish. The other is rigid in a mysterious way. You see, Pisces is incredibly idealistic, an incurable romantic who won't settle for anything less than perfection. They're quite vague about what perfect is, but it has something to do with a perfect dream, a perfect fantasy. They're extraordinarily happy when that occurs, but it doesn't occur very often. And that's why Pisces goes into depression and low times of terrible disappointment. They're poets at heart. So they're always looking for a Garden of Eden that doesn't exist here. Now we've coasted into a really important part of the symbol for Pisces, the space between the two fish. That space is a channel into which anything can flow. The fish have an exceptional ability to take on the moods of others, to begin thinking what others are thinking. They can feel drunk by being in a bar, even if they're having tomato juice. Astrology books will tell you that Pisces is prone to drug use and addiction, and has a fondness for meditation and the spiritual realm. These all come from the same desire, a search for the same thing. Pisces is the sign of the Zodiac that seems to have been most impressed by its oceanic existence in the mother's womb. It wants to go back there. It wants a psychic state known as dissolution, where the person is not an individual anymore, but part of a bigger ocean of energy. That's why Pisces swims off into the ocean of the imagination and takes opiates and engages in addiction. That's also why it's drawn to spirituality. The idea of joining a larger God force is appealing. That's not the way it is much of the time in life. Pisces ends up longing for things, even when they don't know exactly what they're longing for, which can be quite painful. One of the negative traits ascribed to Pisces is a lack of initiative. In other words, it lacks the impetus to strike out in a single direction with a lot of fire behind it. That isn't Pisces' style. And being hyper-focused could mean missing out on the odd current that might take them someplace special. Single-minded focus closes the door on something important to the fish, the element of chance. Pisces stays loose because that promotes the possibility of magic. It tends to believe in ghosts and the gods and metaphysics and out-of-body experiences and life after death. So it's easy for them to believe that they can have magic in their own lives. This is also where we can start talking about some of the darker parts of Pisces, because every sign has those. You'll remember many of Neptune's children were monsters. And sometimes when he came out of the sea, the storms caused a great deal of damage. The flower child in Pisces would rather not think about this, but they can harbor some really negative feelings. By that I mean rage, jealousy, envy, or the urge to wreak havoc and take revenge, because these things don't flow into the gentle self-concept of Pisces. They're often repressed, and they come out in some self-sabotaging ways. One of the ways is believing themselves to be a martyr, feeling enslaved and punished and responding to that with self-flagellation. They'll set themselves up to be taken advantage of or exploited, so that's sure to happen. Pisces seems to understand suffering and doesn't feel quite as bad about being cruel to the self as they do about being cruel to others. Cruelty is still cruelty, even if it is directed toward the self. But some Pisces do hurt other people. Because they can be so elusive, their intimates may not be able to put their finger on what's happening. But Pisces will find a way to paint themselves as a martyr in order to create a feeling that they're owed something because of perceived sacrifices they've made. Of course, there is no way to settle that tab because the debt is self-renewing. Sometimes the apparent giving nature is actually a highly calculated and cold marionette show, because somewhere along the line their compassion for self and others sank to the ocean floor. The fact that Pisces doesn't have and doesn't really value strong boundaries can make the neurotic or sick Pisces blind to the boundaries of others, and that's when violation occurs. The sea is a vast, deep, dark, and unexplored place, so even healthy Pisces can find themselves stricken with anxieties and phobias, those monsters that slither in the sea. Thank you for watching Secrets from an Astrologer's Desk, the personality profiles, Pisces. I'm Joy, more videos to come. And do me a favor, like and subscribe, and keep watching. Next is all the ways you can get in touch for a personalized birth chart reading and full astrological services.